We knocked out quarterbacks. Let's move on to breakout running backs. Welcome to this breakout extravaganza, the second of 4 episodes that you're going to watch or listen to on either Wednesday night or Thursday or sometime in the future. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and Heath Cummings got a special guest. We'll tell you about him in just a moment. Today, we're going to talk about some rookies who are on the breakout list. As Heath said in the quarterback episode, does that make sense? Some say yes, some say no, but it doesn't matter. Bijan and Gibbs, they're going to be great. J.K. Dobbins, Tony Pollard, Rachaad White. We'll get into that. Let's bring in our special guest. We have Jamie Eisenberg of CVS Sports. Do you ever get that? You work at CVS? It's like, no, with the B, like the media company. Yeah.
Actually, I now work at Walgreens, so I appreciate you getting that correct. But no, thanks for having me. You guys are a great show. I listen to you guys all the time. Big fan. Never thought I'd be honored enough to be on this program.
We could use a guy like you on this show.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I'm going to tell you that I listen to your show all the time, but that's never true. But anyway, here are the just kidding, everybody. Here are the mutual breakouts that showed up on multiple lists. Jahmyr Gibbs. No, wait. No, it was Bijan. Bijan Robinson and Rachaad White. Bijan Robinson and Rachaad White. Sorry, I had the wrong list there. Let's start with Bijan. How early for Bijan Robinson? Heath.
I think you asked the wrong guy because it's not the guy who has him ranked the highest, but in non-PPR as early as top 4 in the draft overall. In full PPR, he's a definite first-round pick, probably a top 8 pick.
Dave.
I'm picking 9th in a draft right now, and he went 2 spots in front of me. I would have taken him as soon as 5th overall, and non-PPR, I would take him as soon as 3rd overall. I am all in on Bijan Robinson.
Jamie.
Non and half PPR, I would take him 2nd overall. And no, I wouldn't take 2nd and half. Non-PPR, I'd take him 2 overall. Full PPR, I'd take him 5 overall. And I get questioned a lot of why not Bijan number 1? And I don't have a strong argument in terms of running backs in any format. I think the situation is as pretty ideal as you can get for a guy stepping into the league. So he's going to be fun. I think we're going to regret not ranking him number 1 overall.
In full PPR, Bijan Robinson is RB what?
3.
He's 4 now. I think I had him 8 like a month ago, and 4 guys have fallen by the wayside or had terrible happenings. And so, he's 4 for me.
Who's the other one? McCaffrey, Eckler, and
Eckler, and Barkley.
Okay. All right. We don't have to go too far into Bijan Robinson. Rachaad White was a breakout for Dave and Heath. Jamie, did you co-sign on that?
Yes.
Okay. So, maybe we should just lump all these. There's a lot of them, right? On the high end, there's Tony Pollard and Jahmyr Gibbs. And then there's a whole bunch of guys that, depending on your draft, they could go in any number, any order. I don't know about any order, but not far from it, right? You got Rachaad White, Dameon Pierce. I'm guessing he'd be the first one off the board in most drafts of this group. J.K. Dobbins, James Cook, Alexander Mattison. Again, that list is Rachaad White, J.K. Dobbins, Dameon Pierce, James Cook, and Alexander Mattison. That's across 3 different analysts' lists here. So does anybody disagree with those, I think, 5 guys?
I get a little nervous with Mattison. I get that he's an obvious breakout because he's getting an opportunity that he's never had before other than a few games here and there. But he's just one of the least explosive running backs over the last 2 years. I did the work on this day. He had 11 carries of 16 or more yards, over 208 carries in the past 2 seasons. That's low.
It's bad.
Makes me, I don't know if it's quite Ezekiel Elliott bad, but it's like even Zeke would be like, oh man, damn.
What's an average number of runs over 16 yards? Like what percentage is good or normal or bad?
I'd have to double check that. I don't, off the top of my head, I think it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 to 12%. That might be even a little too high.
I'll help you out here. I'll tell you. Okay, so
no, I've got it.
Out of 56 running backs, he was 43rd in explosive run rate, which is 12 or more yards. So very bad there. He was 54th out of 56 in percentage of carries for 0 or negative yards, as in he had the most, among the most. He was very good, though, in carries of 5 or more yards. So he moved the chains. He stayed ahead of the sticks, I guess.
And we're just talking about last year, Adam? You are?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I was talking about
70,
the last 2 years.
It's 74 carries.
Okay, the year before that, he was 45th in explosive run rate out of 58 running backs who had 100 or more carries. So he had some bad. That metric was bad. 2 years in a row, bad at explosive carries. I'd say Rachaad White, we got to put, even though just a rookie small sample, he wasn't very efficient either. So that's kind of one thing that maybe separates those two guys, Rachaad White and Mattison. They weren't great running backs last year. For Mattison, it's been 2 years in a row. And again, not a lot of carries for them. But that's just something that kind of stands out. It would maybe give people some hesitation.
The thing I like about Mattison, and obviously, we have the sample size of when Dalvin Cook has been there. But if you expand that a little bit, he's got 14 games in his career with at least 10 carries, and he scored 15 PPR points or more in 7 of those. And in 7 games in his career where he's played at least 48% of the snaps, he's averaged 19.5 carries, 84 rushing yards, 3.7 catches, and 34 receiving yards with 5 total touchdowns. Over a full season, that puts him for 332 carries, 1,430 rushing yards, and where did I go? And 63 catches, 583 receiving yards, and 12 total scores. So when he's gotten the opportunity to get work or play a lot, he's been productive. Yeah. And so explosive run rate, all those things, yes, they aren't exactly in his favor. But I just don't know how much he's going to come off the field. That's the biggest question. He might. I mean, Ty Chandler looked really good. There's still the rumor of Kareem Hunt joining the team. So depending on when you're drafting and when you're watching this and listening to it, you might be a little frustrated when you go back and say, well, these guys told me to draft Alexander Mattison. I think there's just a lot to like in the current situation. But if that does change, then clearly there's a problem for him because somebody might be better.
And that explosive run thing can be a good indicator. But at the same time, we have multiple top 15 running backs every year that we're talking about how they didn't have very many explosive runs.
Yeah.
Okay. That average rate was 7.4%. That's over the last 2 years, Heath.
7.4, and he was at basically 5.5.
Yeah, a little lower than that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's Alexander Mattison. So who's your favorite out of Rachaad White, Mattison, Dameon Pierce, James Cook, and who's the one I'm missing here? Dobbins.
I wonder if we're going to have 3 different answers for this one. I'll go first. I'll say Dameon Pierce. I think he's the better running back than Devin Singletary in Houston. I think he fits the new run scheme that they're going to have there. They're going to do the zone running that San Francisco did. I think he's capable as a passer. Not sure if he's going to be asked to do a lot of it. And I think he's the better hammer in short yardage goal line situations. And this should be an improved offensive line. I don't know if it's going to be I think I might have said a couple months ago, it could be league average. Given the injuries that they've already incurred, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But it should still provide some pretty good opportunities for Pierce, who, once he got rolling last year, he was not bad for fantasy at all. And I think he can be a little bit better this year.
All right, so that's Pierce for you. Jamie, who's your favorite in that group of 5?
Dobbins. I'm really excited for him to be in this offense. I'm glad whatever he was dealing with to put him on the PUP list is now a thing of the past. And I think this is going to be a big season for him catching the ball. I think this offense is going to be very successful. And I think he's going to, showcase himself as a runner, which has, never really been a problem for him when he's gotten to work. So I would not be surprised if he's a top 12 running back this year.
All right. Heath, we're going to get 3 different answers. We got Pierce, we got Dobbins. What do we got?
Yeah, because I was going to say Mattison is my favorite of this group, but we already talked a bunch about him. So I was going to say James Cook. And I think the thing that those 2 guys probably have in common, and maybe Baltimore is the exception here, but Lamar runs so much. Those are the guys, Dobbins, Mattison, and Cook, that are on good offenses, even though they have question marks. Mm-hmm. The other 2 guys, well, Rachaad White's one of my breakouts. I definitely agree with it, but that's a question mark about explosiveness and question mark about how good the offense is and how good the offensive line is and how many touchdowns they're going to score. Cook, listen, this Buffalo situation hasn't been great because of what Josh Allen's done in the red zone. And they haven't thrown to their running backs maybe as much as everybody would like for them to, but they're acting like they want to do both of those things. And it doesn't seem like Damian Harris is even going to be a factor.
I'll tell you a number that shocked me. And maybe Dave, if you want to check my work on this. The Bills were actually 15th in running back targets last year. The last 4 seasons in the Josh Allen era, they've been 28th, 27th, 25th, and then 15th in running back targets. I would actually appreciate it if you would double check on that because I want to make sure it's right. I think it's a pretty important number.
I'll need a little more than the usual 30 seconds on that.
I've got this one. I've got the opportunity index right here. So
yeah, because Singletary had 52
I'm
targets and Cook had 32. Naeem Hines, even Reggie Gilliam had a combined 19. Zach Moss had 8. So they spread it around, but they actually did throw to the running backs league average, it seems.
I've got him 16th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So do we think that Cook is going to have a role that we haven't seen other than maybe a 6-game-ish stretch for Devin Singletary, where he's really going to be the bona fide, legit lead running back for the Buffalo Bills?
I've got him projected for like 245 touches this year. So what's that? 14, 15 per game. So I guess not really, but I do think that he will be more explosive than Devin Singletary. So I think he'll probably be more efficient. And but no, I don't think we get to a point to where we have a 300 touch running back in Buffalo. And if they do in the next year or two, I don't think James Cook's probably the guy who's going to see 300 touches, but I do think he gets most of the catches and he averages probably close to 5 yards per carry, if not better, on the ground.
Here's a fun Azer stat for you. So the leader in yards per carry of at least 100 carries last year. You know what that was?
Well, no, he only had 89 carries.
Justin Fields?
Running backs. It might have been Fields, but
I do know who this is.
You were about to say his name, I think.
Well, it wasn't James. I was going to say James Cook, but
Khalil Herbert?
Yeah, that's who it was.
And they average the same yards per carry, and like you said, Cook has 11 carries less. So he didn't get over that 100 carry threshold. I think the best thing that's happening to him right now is not only does he look good in practice and he looked good in the first preseason game, Dameon Harris is hurt, and so is I think Adam, you called him the new cockroach, Latavius Murray.
I think someone else said that.
Oh, maybe that was Heath. That is he going to be, a factor, and he might, and they were in the conversation early on, to maybe bring in Dalvin Cook. We know that's not a possibility anymore. Is Leonard Fournette, who's still hanging out there, or Kareem Hunt still hanging out there, somebody that they go and explore? But I would guess not. And Sean McDermott, I think you've heard me say this a few times. Going back to the owners' meetings in March, that right after they signed Dameon Harris, he was really excited to get a more physical presence there. But he's just following the same script Harris is of not being able to stay on the field. So Cook's got every opportunity here. And I think the one thing to note, and you mentioned this, Adam, in terms of where the numbers are in terms of receptions or opportunities in the passing game for running backs, it was a new offensive coordinator, and that's something that changed last year. Ken Dorsey now taking over play calling as opposed to Brian Daboll. So maybe that's just another wrinkle, and that just continues to get enhanced. But remember, going into last year, they were really trying to get a pass catching running back. It was everything in free agency. It was everything in the draft. And they end up with James Cook. They didn't use him to the level that we thought that they would. But maybe that's something now that they just get him more on the field as a featured guy. So, I find myself, feeling a little bit too low where I have him ranked at 23.
I'm going to ask you a question about Rachaad White and Dameon Pierce and the level of concern you have for them based on the fact that they might be on lousy offenses. We'll see how you guys feel about that after this break on Fantasy Football Today. All right. I teased it going into break, and here we are. So Rachaad White with the Bucks, Dameon Pierce with the Texans. Not exactly Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll get to him in a second, and Tony Pollard, but not exactly James Cook, not exactly Mattison, not exactly Dobbins. So, Dave, what's your level of concern about Pierce and White just not being able to overcome their circumstances?
It's pretty low for Pierce, just because I think talent will win out there in Houston, and I think the coaches like him better as the primary running back. They'd like Singletary too. They wouldn't have signed him otherwise. And Singletary could profile as being the better option on 3rd and 5+, something like that. But I think Pierce is going to get a lot of other opportunities that we look for in fantasy football. Rachaad White is going to win on volume. I don't think we've already talked about just his lack of explosiveness. And, he's probably a little bit better of a pass catcher than people may realize. He got a lot of targets last year. Is he going to get them again this year? Maybe. I worry a little bit about him more so than Pierce.
Okay. Anybody worried about these guys? Significantly worried?
They'd be higher if I wasn't a little bit worried about them. For sure. I guess I'm the low guy on both of them, even though I kind of agree with both of them as potential breakouts. I'm not sure. Pierce was not too far from this last year, was he? But like the where it shows up is in the touchdowns. Like we saw Dameon Pierce last year had 220 carries and scored 4 touchdowns. I've got both Pierce and White projected outside of the top 60 in percentage of rush attempts that go for touchdowns. So if they don't have big reception numbers, and that's right, they're on teams that struggle to score, it's pretty hard to be a running back that matters if you don't have a high touchdown total or a high catch total.
Well, that's where you got to hope Rachaad White wins. You know, to me, he's very different in every format, because I think you got to hope that he's going to be as involved in the passing game as he was last year, or close to it. Now, granted, Baker Mayfield is not Tom Brady, but I think people overlook just what Baker Mayfield's done for pass catching running backs. And granted, he, obviously last year played with one of the better ones because he was with Christian McCaffrey. I think a lot of people forget that they're actually on the same team last year. But he's going to, I think, rely on him. And there was a pretty significant injury for the Bucs today, where Russell Gage goes down, and this receiving core is very, very suspect right now. So they got 2 guys at the top, but it's very thin after that. And so how do you maximize your best players getting him on the field? Rachaad White, I think, is, going to be a 3-down guy, and that's something that you can't overlook. And then what his role in the pass game is hard to overlook. And so for a guy that had 50 catches in his rookie campaign, and he wasn't in the full-time role the majority of the season, that gives him a pretty good opportunity here to do what we're talking about here, to break out. So PPR, I think he's worth drafting as number 2 running back. Half, it's more of a flex, and non-PPR, it's almost just, okay, desperation flex for me, because I don't think he's going to score very many touchdowns, and you don't get the points for those receptions.
I got to say that of this group, I don't typically draft Dameon Pierce because he's going, Fantasy Pros is PPR ADP. Dameon Pierce is 48th. And if you guys like all of these guys as breakouts, I just don't even see the merit in drafting Pierce 48th. I'd rather just wait a couple rounds and draft these other guys. Unless you think Pierce just has such great upside. Like I'm just looking at 2 drafts that I did earlier this week, one on Monday, and then the one we did last night. Dameon Pierce went 40. He went, let's see, 46th in one and like 50th in the other. So no, wait, much earlier than that. Sorry. He went 35th. He went the second to last pick. Yeah, he went 35th in one, and he went about 40th in the other. So
both were full PPR?
Half PPR and full PPR.
And you went higher in the half, right?
5 picks, 6 picks, something like that.
I
don't know that I want to take him in round 4, especially if we like the running back value later. If I'd rather fall back on Connor, who we haven't talked about, he's not a breakout, but any of these guys, Dobbins is going in like round 6, so I just wouldn't do it personally.
I don't know if Thomas can do this, but if he has our consensus rankings from, I think, probably 13 through 24, if he has that up, it's a very much of a mixed bag. I think you could say there's certainly guys you can gravitate toward, breakout candidates and players that you like. And then there's going to be a couple, obviously, that you like to avoid. But that's why I think this is the great year, if you didn't do it the last couple of seasons and just been living in a cave, to go hero RB. Because you get one of these guys, and then you come back in rounds 4 at the earliest, but mostly 5 through 7. And you can get one of these guys to be your number 2 option. And it's a very good place to be, so. Yeah. Right. I think that's, lends itself to going receiver early. And even if you go, I don't want to say 0 RB, because that's not really the theory if you're taking these guys in rounds 4 or 5, but you can get 2 of these guys. I mean, you asked me this recently about, or asked all of us, if you go Jefferson at 1, and I said, I like to go the 3 receivers, Jefferson, Smith, and Higgins, of those choices that you gave, because when you get to that 4-5 turn, you can get 2 of these guys. And so it's just a great start if you're in a 3 receiver PPR league, to go with those receivers and then come back and, double tap these 2 running backs, or 2 of these running backs, excuse me.
All right, we're going to finish up here. Dave, tell me about Tony Pollard. He's on your breakout list, and you like him in the first round.
You think about what he did last year when Ezekiel Elliott was in Dallas. He averaged over 15 PPR points per game. Now Zeke and his touchdown hogging ways is out of there. I think there's room for Pollard to continue to increase his touchdowns and his touches, be the lead back in Dallas. and maybe even pick up over 50 catches over the course of the season. Absolutely one of the most efficient running backs in fantasy last year. I think he was up there the year before too. And now he's getting an increased workload in a pretty quality offense with a really good offensive line. Schedule be damned on this one. I think that Tony Pollard's got a shot to be an absolute league winner and would be thrilled to take him in round 1. I used to try and get him in round 2, and I would take like Stephon Diggs or somebody like that over him. I still might try for that, especially if I'm late in round 1, but I just don't think he's going to get there nearly as much as he used to, especially now. I've been doing a few drafts since Zeke signed in New England. Pollard's going like top 12, top 14 pretty regularly.
Okay, and finally, Jahmyr Gibbs is on Jamie's breakout list. When is the earliest you guys would take Jahmyr Gibbs, let's say in a half PPR league, Jamie?
Well, I mean, in half and non-PPR, he loses, so I would not take him before round 4 in any other format besides PPR. So round 4 the earliest in half, and probably round 5 in non.
And what about in full PPR then?
Beginning part of round 3 is the earliest I would consider.
Heath.
Round 4, early round 4 in full PPR, late round 4 in half PPR. I might still be round 4 in non PPR, but it's like running back 24 versus running back 16.
Right. Okay. And Dave, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Early round 4 in full PPR, late round 4, early round 5 in non PPR.
Wow, two of you saying early round 4 for Jahmyr Gibbs. I thought we get at least 2 round 3s in there.
Well, I mean, to me, it just goes back to what his usage was, and I've talked about this a bunch of times on the show before. Usage in college was never as a feature guy. He was always splitting, barely played near the goal line in college, 6 snaps inside the 5, and then he always struggled to get yards after contact when he was near the line of scrimmage. He could come through like, edge runs and he's 6-7 yards downfield. He makes contact. Yeah, he can bounce off a tackler. A lot of running backs can do that. DeAndre Swift just did that in a preseason game. I think Gibbs can be better than Swift was last year. I don't know if he can really top the 15 or 16 PPR point per game mark.
If everybody stays healthy, top 3 in running back perceptions this year will be Christian McCaffrey 1, Austin Eckler 2, Jahmyr Gibbs 3.
I think I might disagree.
Yeah.
Eckler, McCaffrey.
That's fine.
I mean, I think that's the upside case for sure is that he gets that role. What do we have?
He has that role. He has that role.
Oh yeah, he's got that role in their offense.
Well, what do we have? The quote that came out just like a day or two ago that like 40 to 50 catches was the expectation for him in year 1.
Right. That was
I would bet money on David Montgomery having more catches than Jamal Williams did last year.
Right.
That's fair. I would also bet on Jahmyr Gibbs playing more games than DeAndre Swift.
Let me give you a dark horse to be third. Dark horse. Scoff all you want. Alvin Kamara. Oh, well, he's got the 3-game suspension. Damn it. All right, from week 4 on, Alvin Kamara. From week 4 on, Kamara. Dark horse to be third.
I think the dark horse might be Antonio Gibson.
Oh boy,
he's just in that J.D. McKissic role.
Deep in the barn now.
Barkley, maybe.
Barkley is I've got Barkley, Gibson, Mixon, Stevenson, Gibbs all around 60.
Okay. All right, folks. That's the running backs. We got Jake Seeley coming on in 4 minutes to talk about wide receivers. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. If you're watching the RB breakout episode, it's going to be a new link, a new URL for the wide receivers. So just go back to our homepage and we'll see you then. See ya. Good night, everybody.